Greetings, you sexy bastards. On this fine day, we're checking out The Laws of Human Nature, Chapter 1, looking at the law of irrationality. Master your emotional self. Now, this is just the concise version. I've been taking notes out of here, but before you watch this, you gotta read the full, whole ass chapter. I know they're long, but you can get through it, or at least read the concise version, or listen to it on audiobook, or do all three if you really want to know what's going on. But at the end of this video, I'm going to show you guys the action guide that I created that goes along with this chapter that will help you apply its principles to your life. For now, let's look at a quick summary of this chapter. What did he talk about? What's going on? What is irrationality? What is reason? How do we become more rational? These are the things he talks about. First, he tells a story of Pericles, one of the most rational and strategically wise generals of ancient Greece. It's an excellent story. I actually have a whole book about Pericles back right over there. A very wise individual. So what is reason? Reason, well, let's start with what is irrationality. Irrationality is our tendency to use our thinking to justify our emotions. We so often think that since we're all scientifically advanced and we have all this technology and we've overcome all of these natural difficulties by building houses and roads, and now we can travel long distances by flying through the air and all this crazy shit, we think we've moved beyond irrationality. We think thanks to the philosophies brought to us by the Enlightenment, now we are enlightened and we don't do all of these dumb things that the animals do. We aren't subject to our instincts, but that is not the case. Irrationality is not something that society can move beyond. It's something that every single individual has to move beyond by developing strategies and practices that allow them to master their emotional self. So where is this irrationality coming from? Or where is this emotional self coming from? Essentially, the way the human mind evolved is in three key layers. As he describes it, you have your underlying instincts, and then you have the emotions, you have the instincts and the natural responses that are at the core of your brain. And then above that are the emotions and the feelings that those instincts bring. And those emotions, those feelings are going to cause you to go and act in a certain way. They're causing you to react. And in our natural, primitive environment, a lot of those emotions serve very useful purposes. However, in our new environment, oftentimes they guide us into some pretty self-destructive behaviors. And finally, that last layer is the cognitive layer. This is the layer of thought, and this is the layer that allows us to access the rational self, to become rational. However, it doesn't automatically make us rational. And what you see so often is people use thought, they use that cognitive realm, or that cognitive aspect of the brain, the prefrontal cortex, and by using it, they think, oh, I'm rational because I'm using it, but that's not in fact the case. What so many people fail to realize is that our emotions cause our thinking. So much of our thinking is irrational because while we may be thinking, while we may have facts and we may have evidence and we may have all of these justifications why some conclusion we've come to is true, there are emotions that underlie those thoughts. And those emotions can come from a place of self-preservation, a place of wanting to protect our egos. Maybe there are certain realities about ourselves that we don't want to face, and so we construct stories to justify whatever that reality is. And these are all thoughts that are coming from an irrational place. They're getting driven by our emotions. And it's a little bit of a predicament that we find ourselves in, just having all of these emotions, and we have this tool of thinking that we want to be able to use to be effective in life, but so often that tool just exacerbates the problems that come from our inherent irrationality, from our emotions. So here's what has to happen. Hold up. What has to happen first is either our thinking is going to justify our emotions, or you have to accept our natural irrationality. We have to accept the power that our emotions have over our actions, over our thoughts even, and we have to learn how to question our thoughts. And that's where rationality comes from. It's the ability to have certain thoughts come up and ask, is that valid, or is that thought just protecting my ego? Or is that thought just a comforting thought that makes me feel good, that makes me feel better about myself, that makes me not have to maybe go and do something that might be scary, that I might not want to do? So I'm gonna read his definition of irrationality and reason from page 15 in this here condensed version. See how much time I got. I think I got plenty of time, but I'm looking in the mirror, so I don't really know. And I got a bright light on my face. It's a whole thing. Anyway, we constantly feel emotions, and they continually infect our thinking, making us veer towards thoughts that please us and soothe our egos. He calls this the pleasure principle in thinking. We have thoughts and they feel good, and we're like, hey, I like that thought. It must be true. It is impossible to not have our inclinations and feelings somehow involved in what we think. Rational people are aware of this, and through introspection and effort are able to some extent to subtract emotions from their thinking and counteract their effect. Irrational people have no such awareness. They rush into actions without carefully considering the ramifications and consequences. So this is why so often we see these people who say they're all rational. Oh, I'm so rational. I just think things out through reason and logic, and everybody else is fucking crazy. And the reality is these often tend to be the most irrational individuals. The most rational individuals we will meet are the ones who are able to pinpoint which emotions tend to distort their thinking the most, what ideas they might be the most biased for. Those are the most rational people. They aren't the ones who sit there with this overwhelming sense of certainty and confidence and spew out a whole list of facts that justify some idea without considering where might my thinking have distorted reality in some way. So this is a really important skill. Here's a quick summary of why this is such an important skill. We can see the difference in decisions and actions that people take and the results that they endure. Rational people demonstrate over time that they are able to finish projects, realize their goals, work effectively with a team, create something that lasts. Irrational people reveal in their lives negative patterns, mistakes that keep repeating, unnecessary conflicts that follow them wherever they go, dreams and projects that never get realized, anger and desires for change that are never translated into concrete action. They are emotional and reactive and unaware of this. Everyone is capable of irrational decisions, some of which are caused by circumstances beyond our control. And even the most emotional types can hit upon great ideas or succeed momentarily through boldness, but that's not always necessarily going to be the case. So essentially you have one group, rational people, they're able to accomplish goals. They have less conflicts in their lives. They make more meaningful connections with people. They have consistency. They're able to devise strategies that work consistently instead of waiting for a little bit of luck here and there. So you want to be able to develop reason in order to have a solid life. So how are we going to do this? First off, I'm going to give you guys this action guide. This action guide is going to help you actually apply all of these ideas in this book, or at least in this chapter, to your life so that you can become more rational. The first thing is the personality profile. This is a long document that I'm still working on that's going to allow you to observe the qualities of human nature, or the laws of human nature, in action in other people. So for this first one, you're simply going to practice assessing the degree to which somebody else is rational. The second thing that you're going to do is, well, let's talk real quick about the difference between low grade and high grade irrationality, because there's a three-step process that Robert Greene describes. The first is going to be dealing with low grade irrationality. Again, it's using your thinking to deal with that irrationality, to deal with those emotions and stop them from distorting your thinking. Then you're going to deal with high grade irrationality, again, utilizing thought to deal with that. And then finally, there will be the qualities of the rational individual, which you will practice developing. Um, so, first off, low grade irrationality, that's essentially the small thoughts that occur on a day to day basis. These aren't majorly, you don't experience low grade irrationality to a large extent. It's subtle and it's quiet, but it's these little thoughts that get distorted by the biases, the cognitive biases, by the pleasure principle in thinking. So the pleasure principle in thinking, as I said before, there are certain thoughts that feel good, there are other thoughts that feel bad. So those bad thoughts we kind of rationalize around, and the good thoughts we rationalize to justify because we want those to be true. A quote I love that kind of can help you deal with the pleasure principle in thinking is, the truth will set you free, but first it'll piss you off. If you want to be able to create effective strategies, if you want to be able to manage conflict well, if you want to be able to work in a team well, if you want to be able to set goals and actually achieve them consistently, you need to be able to accept truths that you may not necessarily like or enjoy. If you want to grow, if you want to develop yourself, you have to accept that there are aspects of yourself that you might not be happy exist, but you might have to deal with that anyway. So the truth will set you free. It'll free you from all of these problems, from the inability to strategize, from continually failing to achieve your goals. But it's going to piss you off first, and you're just going to have to accept that negative emotion as a part of life and as part of the process. And you just kind of say, hey, I can enjoy this, I can accept it. So low grade irrationality, again, it's those little thoughts, the small, let's see, I think there's something in here that I think will help with the low grade, high grade. These are the continual moods and feelings we experience in life below the level of consciousness. We plan or make decisions. We are not aware of how deeply these moods and feelings skew the thinking process. They create in our thinking pronounced biases. They are deeply ingrained within us, and we see evidence of them in all cultures and periods throughout history. So these are the cognitive biases, ultimately, with a few extra steps. Then high-grade irrationality, this is what he calls inflaming factors. These are emotions that come and hit us hard, and we're like, oh shit, I don't know what to do about.
He could have killed you at any point. He was just playing with his food. Like, at that point, he really was playing with his food. Because he had you by the balls.
These are the more intense emotions that make you go and do impulsive things, take impulsive actions, or make you run away from this or that. They make you take action very fast, or they stop you from taking action when you need to take action. Perhaps they make you too hesitant. So this occurs when emotions become inflamed, generally because of certain pressures. We think about our anger, excitement, resentment, or suspicion. It intensifies into a reactive state. Everything we see or hear is interpreted through this lens of emotion. We become more sensitive and more prone to other emotional reactions. And the final thing, number 3, is you're going to enact certain strategies and exercises that will strengthen the thinking part of the brain. So step 1, recognize the biases. For this step in the action guide I copied down each of the biases. Obviously you got to read this, know what the biases are so you know what you're looking for, and then you're going to create records of times where you actually experienced these biases operating in your brain. Again, if you think that you don't have experiences where these biases are operating, then either you're just arrogant or you just need more time to reflect. You need to keep this kind of in the back of your mind and wait to notice when one of these biases come to the surface. 2, be aware of the inflaming factors. This is something that you're probably going to want to reflect more deeply throughout your life. You've inevitably experienced at least some of these throughout your life, but you may have to wait a while until certain experiences actually bring these up. For example, sudden losses or gains. I'm sure we've all had sudden losses or gains throughout the past, but reflect on those moments in the past, and then when something comes up in your life and you have a sudden loss or you have a sudden gain, go to the action guide, write it down, and get reflecting. Same thing with rising pressure, with inflaming individuals, with the group effect, all of those. Finally, strategies towards bringing out the rational self. So here's some qualities of the rational self: a realistic appraisal of yourself and your weaknesses, a devotion to the truth and reality. The truth will set you free, but first it'll piss you off. And a tolerant attitude toward people, the ability to reach goals that you have set. These are the things that you're going to start attaining once you've employed some of these strategies towards bringing out the rational self. So you go through these, know yourself thoroughly. You're going to get a better, more realistic, more accurate description of yourself. You're going to learn how to analyze individual emotions. You'll go through, say, hey, here's an experience. What emotions were underlying it? Why were these emotions coming up? What were they trying to tell me? What kind of images maybe came to the surface of my mind when I felt those emotions? And that's about that. That's chapter 1, the laws of human nature. Hit the link in the description. Action guide is there. Read this first, then do action guide. Come back to it continually over time so that you can build this not just sitting down for 10 minutes once, but over the course of the next few months, whenever you have experiences where you believe your thinking may be distorting reality, or your emotions may be distorting your thinking. Thank you.